everybody. Welcome to today's show. My name is Spencer Walsh. Thank you so much for joining us here today. We got a great and live show for you on this Thursday evening, or, it feels like evening with the way the sun's going with freaking daylight savings. Jesus Christ. Anyway, it's the midterms. They just happened 2 days ago. Results have still been coming in, and really, they kind of are in a bit of a stasis. They're going to be in a bit of a stasis for a while, but here in the intro, we will go over some of the key and full results. In the Senate, it is 48-49. Democrats with 48, Republicans with 49. There are right now, that obviously means there are 3 seats unresolved at this point. And that is Arizona, Nevada, and Georgia. Georgia going to a runoff. Dems notably flipping Pennsylvania. They did not pick up anywhere else, though, but that's going to be a big win. John Fetterman going to the Senate. A big deal. But another big story, the House. Dems really overperforming in the House, picking up some key swing districts that we'll go over for you in a big way, talking about some of the, really kind of incredible performances in the Midwest. While they did, of course, drop some in some places like New York and Florida, they picked up some in Cleveland and Michigan, and we will go over all that, as now it really does seem like, the House majority is going to come down to less than 10 votes if the Republicans do hold on to it, which going in the election, literally nobody thought. The big question was, which way will the Senate go? The House, it was almost assumed as default will go Republican. The odds are already so, kind of in their favor, even with the gerrymander, with the way things are. I think they're still going to win the popular vote by a little, but it's still Republicans, but it still is really remarkable what the Democrats are able to do. And the guy who led the campaign, the irony is, the guy who led the campaign through all of it, ended up losing. So he ended up losing his own seat. So that is, of course, my home district in New York, Sean Patrick Maloney. And there's really some pretty remarkable stuff. Colorado, it does seem, it does seem like Lauren Boebert has taken the lead at this point. It does seem like there is still, though, a little bit more votes to go. I'm flitting around here. I just need to get myself organized. I need to get myself set, because there just is so much to get into here. We are looking through it all, and you kind of get the way it stands right now. In the House, it is 191-209. There are obviously several House seats still outstanding. So many different takeaways, so many different things to go over here. But let's start with the House here. So control of the Congress is resting on a knife's edge with dozens of House and Senate races, or dozens of House seats and Senate races still unresolved and thousands of votes left to count. So 2 days after the election, House Republicans were still stung by a disappointing midterm performance, had won or were leading in the races for 221 seats. Just 3 more than they need to take the 435-member chamber. So it's going to come down really to 3. And then the Democrats are going to be on 214. So more than 30 races were still uncalled as of midday and could shift. But Democrats were left with only a narrow chance of retaining control of the chamber, an outcome even party operatives privately saw as a long shot. So they're really kind of thrilled to be this close anyway. And the likelihood is they are going to have a very, very dysfunctional caucus with a really, frankly, civil war as they are handed power of the Republicans are as they are handed power of the House. There's real questions now. Will Kevin McCarthy, who is seen as a shoo-in, as a presumptive speaker, will he become the speaker? Now, even if they have, if they have a 3-seat majority, they're going to need every single Republican to line up behind one man. And if there's any dissent from the Matt Gaetzes, Marjorie Taylor Greenes, and Lauren Boeberts, if she's back, you don't even know at this point, of the world, there could be some real big problems. So, GOP strategists believing they could have pushed their total into the mid-220s or slightly higher. Both parties were within reach of controlling the Senate, currently split 50-50, with races in Arizona and Nevada still uncalled. Honestly, no idea what is happening in Nevada, but I'm still I felt like this on election night, and I'm still feeling it, that Arizona will go Democrat, but I just don't know at all with Nevada. Of course, the contest in Georgia, that's looking, people are saying that's looking slightly more favorable for Warnock, but you never know. It's going to happen on December 6th, that runoff. Democrats, they also picked up a crucial Senate seat in Pennsylvania with the victory of Lieutenant Governor John Fetterman, but they need to win at least 2 of the still unresolved seats to preserve their 50-seat majority, with Vice President Kamala Harris serving as a tie-breaking vote. Republicans need to claim 2 to take control, so they're going to have to either win. So if they drop one of those 2, they could go undefeated, and they would have 51 seats. That would be huge. But the chances are, if they can still lose one and have control with 50, like it has been for the past 2 years, which would actually be quite funny. If just the reverse, with a different guy up there in the Speaker of the House. But it's still interesting. Democrats were able to pass some stuff with that majority that they had. I wouldn't think it was very significant, and also a lot of it was really significantly diluted, by people like Josh Gottheimer and all those really awful people colluding to stop prescription drug prices, stop $15 minimum wage, working with people like Kristen Sinema and Joe Manchin in the Senate. To really put a lot of Joe Biden's most aggressive parts of his agenda that were, in comparison to what happened now. And, we still, I think really the big picture result here is you saw, I think what really stuck out to me is the economic picture of it. The economy, inflation was the most important issue for people. And people who had the areas where Biden did the absolute best were the areas where, obviously, abortion played a big role. Abortion was the second most popular issue by not that much. So, obviously, abortion played a big role there. Places like Michigan, where it was on the ballot, Wisconsin, where it's always under threat, very kind of inconsistent control of government, very gerrymandered state house, and a kind of very unstable Democratic governor who's kind of constantly under threat, and, mixed control from the Senate with Ron Johnson. I forget who the other Democratic senator is, but I do believe it's a Democrat. But anyway, like those people, the stats show areas where Biden really tried to, push investment with the CHIPS Act, with the IRA, with the infrastructure bill, that actually led to that percentile or decile, I think it was, of wages saw probably the most increase out of anyone post-pandemic. And that, I think, was something that really, really helped that turnout, because that was something that was, an actual economic benefit. And you saw that play out, plus the abortion dynamic. And I think that was really key to some of the big Republicans absolutely killed it. Democrats killed it in Illinois, Minnesota, Michigan, Wisconsin, all that stuff. They were really, I don't know actually how the final numbers were for Mandela Barnes in the Senate, but, I think Tony Evers winning was a big surprise. He came in as the underdog there, but Ron Johnson, 49.5 to 50.5. Mandela Barnes ending up running there in the Senate race. So that is really some pretty impressive stuff. And I mean, he ran, I think, Ron Johnson to a very, very good rate. Ron Johnson just has some kind of like demonic control over that state, which is really, frankly, disturbing in a lot of ways. But, Barnes did well, underperformed Biden, but it's, Johnson is just, again, he's some sort of just demonic connection with that state that's very, very hard to understand. In the race for the House, though, the outstanding ballots, many from the West Coast, meant control might not be decided for several more days, but what was clear on Thursday was that a nation deeply divided over abortion, economics, crime, and the state of representative democracy would have a Congress that reflects those divisions. So that is a pretty fair way to put it. Either way, you're going to have some people who, that one guy who, J.R. Manchewski in Illinois, he didn't win, but there's definitely going to be some pretty crazy people like Marjorie Taylor Greene. $9 million, I think, they spent on unseating her, and she won as soon as the polls closed. It was evident the redistricting process had made House races in key states such as Florida and New York more favorable to conservatives. 6 seats flipped from Democrats to Republicans in New York and Florida alone. And I think this is something we should really kind of get into. And this is an area where I think it's interesting because it's, my home state, so I could probably speak the most authoritatively on it more than, any other state. But the real blight, I think, for, and people have been saying this throughout, is that the real blight on the situation has been that for the Democrats holding a House, if they had been consistent in their performance, if they had done as well in New York as they had done in the other parts of the country, they would have won. They would have won the House. If they had netted those, really, if they had done that well, they would not only they would win those seats on the island that they lost, that were flipped, and they definitely would have won the seat that was held by Sean Patrick Maloney, the awful politician who failed to turn out or say anyone, who just had awful messages on abortion. He was the guy who just literally wet blanket on the Democratic base as soon as the Dobbs decision dropped. And that if there is any place in the world where, or the nation, where abortion would be salient, that district, especially the areas where Sean Patrick Maloney needs to turn people out, that would be the area. That is an incredibly pro, white liberal. It's like literally Hillary Clinton's hometown. They're all people who, white women liberals who very strongly identify with Hillary Clinton, live there totally. And people are very socially liberal in a big way and motivated. They weren't this time, but normally motivated to come out. They came big in 2016, in 2018, and 2020 for the Democrats, and that was something that, frankly, was quite interesting to see that Sean Patrick Maloney failed to bring that through. So it really was quite remarkable, frankly. And I think that kind of level of corruption in the New York State Democratic Party, I want to find a good article to really kind of get into it, is just really cost people a lot. And, the big thing, AOC talks about this a lot. And I think what she said, this is what she had to say about this. Democrats, they beat the odds across the country in the midterms, but one unforeseen spot stood out. This is what she said to the New York Times here in an interview. And so she said there were a lot of factors that went into New York's underperformance relative to the rest of the country. A lot of it has its roots with Andrew Cuomo. A lot of what he did to the state and the Democratic Party as governor led to this moment. But it's not really about placing the blame on him, but examining what the New York State Democratic Party looks like. It's not a small d democratic structure. As a consequence, we do not have the rich democratic culture and organizing that should be happening year-round. From the way we select our town councils and mayorships across the state of New York, the absence of that results in a lot of what we saw. It's no secret that an enormous amount of party leadership in New York State is based on big money and old-school calcified machine-style politics that creates a very anemic voting base that is disengaged and disenfranchised. And you saw that in Brooklyn, New York. Richie Torres spent the week before the election, he's the congressman there, in Israel, doing literally nothing to turn out the vote there, and they got absolutely trounced up and down the ballot. And you look at what Sean Patrick Maloney did, and you look at really frankly, it all really goes back to, I think Andrew Cuomo's an important way to say it, and it's a lesson to, Andrew Cuomo's not dead as a political figure. I think it's very foolish to think, that he is, because he's still around, he's still lurking in the background. His people have their fingers all over certain articles of the New York Post, dropping leaks and things like that about Letitia James and all his enemies and the people that took him down. Those people, they are plotting for his return. And I think it's really important to understand that the reason why the Democrats do not hold the House, in large part, you can tie a lot of it back to Andrew Cuomo. The fact that this current write-up on the 2020 results in the or the write-up that was passed by Kathy Hochul and the New York State Legislature, that would have netted them at least 4 to 5 4 to 5 more House seats out of New York, for the Democrats, and that was overturned by Cuomo-appointed right-wing judges, and now, we have a situation where there's awful districts, awful candidates, and frankly, she's very right to say no real organizing structure, which is definitely a much deeper problem. So yeah, there's also a narrative problem when you look at what New York did. There's over-reliance and insistence on leaning into Republican narratives on crime and safety. I've been saying that as well. Hurt Democrats in the state of New York. Instead of ignoring or even pivoting and commanding the narrative on crime and public safety, a lot of Democrats leaned into Lee Zeldin's approach. So she absolutely put in that effort. The interviewer talking about Kathy Hochul, kind of making an effort to talk more about guns and crime. She said that AOC said that she did, but it's a team sport when you have certain congressional candidates running ads on defund the police, and when we have the mayor speaking from certain frames on crime and safety. I think it further drives these narratives. Not once has the New York State Democratic chair ever called me. All he did is antagonize me and my progressive candidates. We need to get together as a team. The idea of pure moderate politics that seeks to defeat the progressive grassroots and the Republican Party at the same time, often very, very much isolates itself and makes itself smaller. And I think that's a very fair point, and it's going to be a point that AOC, if she can really make a big influence, is really gaining control over. If she's too scared to do anything in the House, which clearly she is, in the national level, she could really exercise her influence in New York, like Sean Patrick Maloney and all these people are doing, to really clear the way for what is a super, super strong New York City DSA base. To come in there with all those very strong candidates, up and down the ballot, out of boroughs in Manhattan, everywhere, just so powerful. And there's no reason to see it with India Walton, and if what she's got going on in Buffalo, like there's no reason why someone like AOC cannot be a leader for that kind of movement and kind of clearing the way at the top for further action. And to really, reshape the state of New York and make sure like something like this does not happen again. Because boy, it did seem quite unnecessary. Other Republican seats, including that of the Firebaron Representative Lauren Boebert, remain in trouble. Strategists from both parties remain also clearly watch some key races in which their candidates were trailing, but they believed outstanding votes could flip the race, including Representative David Trone, a Maryland Democrat. Control of the Senate will likely take even longer than the House. So let's go into some of the uncalled House races. I guess, Nevada, I think, is going to be the biggest one to watch there. Then, of course, Georgia, depending on that. Georgia will have, a certain amount of significance. If both go blue, it'll matter a lot less. 51st vote will be key, but it'll matter a lot less for real control of the Senate. But, I think it really is going to matter a certain degree less. It's more we're spending time on the House now because, all you got to do, watch Nevada. If that goes red, Arizona's most likely to go blue. If that goes red, then Georgia matters a lot more for true Senate control. But anyway, so let's get into the House here. Some of the latest updates. We're looking at the remaining uncalled House races and what is the situation. So 218 of what the Democrats need. They have a lot more kind of to win. They're up kind of in a fair bit. So 214 seats, the Democrats kind of lead and control. They're kind of on the cusp. They need to get 4 more to get to 218 for total control. And to do that, they'd have to get up to roughly 2%. They'd have to overcome, flip a 6,000 vote deficit in, with about 69% of the vote in, which is actually probably definitely possible in Southeast Arizona. But it's kind of it is very, very tough to tell in Arizona and all these places. Oregon 5th, another one, 73% of the vote in. That's a progressive there. Jamie McLeod Skinner. I think she's going to have probably a tough run of it coming back. It's probably going to be a very, very small return. But if you look at these very small margins in Colorado, you get the Western Slope district. That's Lauren Boebert's district. Really a deep red. I think Cook political +8 rating. And Adam Frisch here fun fact, forward party endorsed candidate. I don't know how much they did for him, but they endorsed him. They must have seen something that we did not, because nobody saw Adam Frisch giving Lauren Boebert here the run of her life in what was a really tight race in kind of the left half, the western half of Colorado, southwestern really. And yeah, 50.13, 49.87, tight margin here, less than 200 votes, I want to say, or no, a little more than 200 votes, mid 200 votes in between them. 253, I think, was the number there. But that is just really incredible. And you look at all the votes, there's a fair bit of votes all around for everyone still to go in. There's a Frisch plus 8 county that's at 93%, Frisch plus 14 county that's at 90%, Frisch plus 58 county that's at 80% here. But every other county is still in. I think Frisch, he still could make up that difference. I think it's interesting to say. If you look at Adam Frisch now, if I'm going to Google him, I've heard some stories that say he's on track to win. Not that it's been called or anything, but I think if he wins, that'll be a remarkable pickup. Really, kind of on the level of embarrassment and kind of on the level of deep into the other team's territory that the Republicans picking up the Sean Patrick Maloney seat was. So I think that's going to be a big pickup for sure. So it does seem that they take a slim. They're saying right now, Lauren Boebert, she taking slimly thousands of ballots still remain here. This is in the Denver Post. As of 1:21 p.m., this is, I'm assuming, Colorado time, Thursday, Boebert led Frisch by just 794 votes at the slim margin of 50.13 to 49.87, but the race is far from over. Gilbert Ortiz, the Pueblo County clerk, confirmed to the Denver Post that his office has yet to count about 1,800 in-person votes, 5,200 mail-in votes, and is in the process of verifying the signature of another 500 more ballots. Ortiz's office is expected to filter updated votes to vote counts to state election officials throughout the day. So the remaining votes could give Frisch a chance to remain the lead. So far, Pueblo County voters lean toward the Democratic candidate from Aspen, 54 to Boebert's 46. Unless either candidate wins enough votes, the race will trigger the state's automatic recount process. So it could go down really pretty serious in that race, which is really kind of fascinating. So the Colorado 3rd is quite an interesting one. Another one that's very close, and this is going to take, unfortunately, forever because a lot of these California mail-in votes. This is California 13th Central Valley Merced. I don't know if I'm saying that right area. This is just southeast of San Francisco, I guess is what I would characterize it as John Duarte and Adam Gray are locked in a very tight race in a Central Valley region that leans more Democratic. But it does seem right now that they will, it's very, very possible that, 200 votes between them, anything really could happen. 794 votes now between Boebert and the Adam Frisch candidate. Another one, New York 22, is, that's 1.5, that's 2. These are the ones that are kind of, in the barrier possibility, the, four most likely, which would be California 13th, the John Duarte district, Colorado 3rd, the Boebert district, New York 22, which is the Syracuse area district that's been a big battleground from time to time, Francis Canole and Brandon Williams. It's going to be a tough one for him. He's down by about around, I think 2,000 votes, was it? He is down by 3,000 votes, 3,925 votes. And it does seem, like looking at some of the counties here, it's going to be very, 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 very little vote left and a big margin to make up, to say the least. So it's going to, that could be another one. Or we could see someone like the Maryland 6th, D.C. suburbs. David Trone is an incumbent who's being beat kind of in the Maryland, the far, he's a Democrat and wealthy businessman. He's in a rematch against Neil Parrott, a Republican state lawmaker running a Trump-tinged campaign in the, far west corner of Maryland, kind of up there in the kind of very jaggedy edge part. I don't really know how else to describe it there, but the most votes are in a county that's Parrott 62, but there are a few votes, a good share of votes left in the one Montgomery County for Trone. That kind of stretches down. It's a very, very much more populous kind of than all the rest there. So, but he's down by roughly 4,500 votes. So that's going to be a tough one. But there's another interesting one here that kind of catches my eye. 2% of the votes, 6,000 votes. Siscomani, Juan Siscomani, the Republicans, up on Kristen Engel in Arizona. So this is an interesting one. So they are 51.2% to 48.8%, and this is the Tucson area, kind of stretching out to the Tucson and to the east of Tucson. So that's one where there still is a lot of left votes out. The most votes still outstanding in Pima County, which is Engel plus 7. So which is the Tucson area closest to Tucson there. So that is going to be something that if they can turn out there, a lot can happen. So pretty much it. The point is here, House races, a lot still outstanding, and that is something very much to watch. In the Senate, so Adam Laxalt there. The race is Adam Laxalt taking on Senator Catherine Cortez Masto. In Las Vegas is Clark County. The big wait there is for the mail-in ballots postmarked as late as Tuesday, meaning final count will not be announced till next week. Senator Mark Kelly, a Democrat, has maintained a pretty solid lead over Blake Masters, but counting two there has been slow. Let's zoom in here on that Blake Masters race, which I think Kelly is still up with 5, with about 70% in, but there is still a huge chunk of votes in it, especially, you got Maricopa, huge chunk of votes in Maricopa, but also, fair chunk of votes up, around the Mojave County, La Paz is a very small county, but the, counties around Tucson that are more Republican, and, there's still a lot more kind of Republican vote out there as well. But the question is, will it be enough? And how, really, the bellwether, I think, is how will Maricopa come in when all is said and done. But I still think, Mark Kelly comes out on top, as I've said and felt since election night. But it does seem at this point, a New York Times estimate, they are estimating now that it is a 0.04 Cortez Masto victory at this point in Nevada. And I'm assuming they're going to say Kelly's going to hold on also. So that leaves a possible 51 seats in the Senate for Democrats. That would be quite a remarkable result if Georgia goes the way it is kind of favored to as well. So that's very interesting. And just to double check, they have a 2.8% estimate for Kelly, and I think that's probably pretty accurate when it comes down to it. So that is going to be really a lot of interesting dynamics there all throughout. Honestly, I would say I don't know where they're seeing. I really do think it's going to be a pretty interesting race. I think it's going to be a pretty interesting race for the Georgia situation, and you're going to have to really make the final call on that much closer to December 6th when that election actually happens. But wow. That could be really, if it goes all three of these races go the Democrats' way, that could be quite remarkable. Some pretty impressive performances throughout for the governors. Katie Hobbs really giving, Carrie Lake was really kind of expected to walk away with Katie Hobbs, who for some reason really just refused to debate Carrie Lake. Which I think was always a mistake, saying she just wants a spectacle. She's too crazy. Carrie Lake is the governor candidate for Arizona. She is a election denying, charismatic. Many people consider her kind of the heir to Trump. Katie Hobbs is the Democrats' Secretary of State who defended the 2020 election results. Carrie Lake really has kind of become a champion of the far right. And right now, Katie Hobbs is up by just a smidgen. At the moment, and so the 73% in Maricopa County and 66% in Pima County. Some pretty encouraging numbers for Hobbs in terms of what she wants to see. Two of the most populous counties in Arizona, still with two of the lowest shares of outstanding vote for Hobbs. If she can pull this off, something that the polls did not suggest at all, it's going to be a big, big victory, I think, for the Democrats on this governor level. They really did quite well. I think that's something that people have just not appreciated. They did do quite well. So Democrats are currently leading in every House district touching the Pacific Ocean, including the Alaska race, the California race, California 47, California 49, Washington 03, which probably has never happened before. So that is a interesting, fun fact there from the midterms. And really, a lot of still, I think really election week is not for the best, but it is kind of the best for content because, you do get to have a lot of, you do have to have a, there's a lot of drama, a lot of things to talk about, and it kind of really does keep going for quite a long period of time. Joe Biden, he reacted to some midterm results. Pretty, unsurprisingly, a triumphant race, pretty kind of triumphant moment. He said, I'm not going to change anything, and I think I'm doing quite all right. Even the Republicans have control of the House. By all accounts, Kevin McCarthy really going to struggle to maintain control of that caucus with the, political partisan makeup being as it is. But Biden says voters told politicians they want us together, and he says he will try, but then lists all the ways Republicans will try to reverse his agenda. It makes it clear that he will try to block those efforts. So, again, I think doing that bipartisan rhetoric, but maybe not acting in a way that, Biden has acted so many times in the past. Maybe, just maybe, at the end of this term, he's trying to finally learn his lesson in the fact that it is very, very tough for Democrats to, it's very, very tough for Democrats to, really get in the past, at least, to get past some of the worst of Republican obstruction and things like that. But, is Joe Biden going to say we're seeing through the trick, seeing through the spin, and actually, getting a little bit harder? So Biden sounds like a candidate on a victory lap, even though his party lost seats and may lose control of the House. But avoiding the disastrous election results that someone feared and predicted makes the results feel a lot better to Democrats. And, the House performance not bad. Senate performance, frankly, objectively stellar. There is no real instance, especially given where the polls were, especially given where the economic environment was. That is a stellar performance, no doubt about it, on the Senate side for the Democrats. And also, frankly, on the governor's side as well. In the Midwest, Gretchen Whitmer, she would have been considered a toss-up seat. She would have been considered a possible Republican pickup, 6 months to a year ago. And she killed it last night. She absolutely killed it. Firmly, kind of reaffirming the blue status of Michigan. I don't think she's very good, in terms of the policy, frankly. She could be a lot better. I think labor there, as it gets more stronger, can and should demand a lot more for her, so she gets to be more kind of like a J.P. Pritzker figure. But with that being said, that is still an incredible sign. Minnesota, too, getting a super majority in the state house. Pennsylvania, they flipped the state house. These things are going to be incredibly influential when it all adds up. So it is, it's been very, very clear that that is going to have a very, very big impact on the future. So with that being said, we're going to hit the final stretch here in 49 seconds.
My name is Spencer Walsh. This is the Spencer Walsh Radio Network, and if you're listening to one of our podcasts, whether it's Newsflash, Hidden History, The Spencer Walsh Show, or something else, ladies and gentlemen, we have one simple request of you. Please be sure to rate us, subscribe to us if you like us, and leave us a comment, because just like all of you, sometimes we need that feedback in our lives, good or bad. We want to hear what you have to say. So please do those steps. Make SWR and content better. And thank you so much for listening.
Don, who couldn't build a wall, had a great fall. Can all the GOP's men put the party back together again? Trumpty Dumpty. You know, that is a very Murdoch-style title. That was the title this morning on the New York Post as the onslaught in the Republican Party against the Trump wing continues after really they just get absolutely trounced, embarrassed, whatever word you want to use, you can use it about these guys because boy did they get it. I love how it says on the bottom, analyst John Podhoretz has 2 words why Tuesday was a red trickle. Donald Trump, his terrible candidates drag Republicans down. And now, writes columnist Piers Morgan, it's time for Trump to move on from politics. Yeah, so good luck. I would say, good luck to all you guys who have, honestly, if it comes to Trump versus, like, the incompetency of Trump versus people like Piers Morgan and John Podhoretz getting back in power in the Republican Party, that is a real Sophie's choice, to say the least. That just shows, really, frankly, the establishment of the Republican Party best represented by the Murdoch press, from Fox News to the Wall Street Journal to the New York Post. And it really shows you they are pushing and turning on them fast. They saw what a lot of people see, and I think there is a pretty good case for it. You got people in the establishment of the Republican Party, also in the Daily Wire as well, really turning on Trump substantively and saying, this guy is not fit for purpose anymore. He's not someone who is going to be an election winner. We meaning, Mitch McConnell, the National Senate Republicans, just poured money into, frankly, losers, people like Herschel Walker, Dr. Oz. They almost did with Blake Masters, and they just got lost. They put all the money in. Trump put no money in. They picked none of the candidates, and the candidates all lost. There are not going to be happy campers after this, and it's going to be a real civil war when it comes to the Republican Party. It's going to be very interesting to see who wins it, because by and large, it's time and time again. We think so many times, will they do it? Will they finally tell their base to sit down and shut up? And I think, it comes, every time they may have to, they always seem to find a way. So it's quite amazing. So it may happen. It may go the way that, it may go that way, but we will see. We'll follow it, whatever happens, for you very closely here on Newsflash. And that's all the time we have for today. We will see you on Tuesday.